Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an easy-peasy episode of The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. And here's your host, Alan Mosley.
Welcome back to The Gold Standard for episode 30-something.
30-something.
30.
We're 30-something now. It doesn't really matter anymore.
So the problem we have now is that we actually have multiple projects in the works.
Yeah.
But we don't know which projects will win the race.
Our head is just all full of,
So if I say 34, but then 35 finishes first, then I'm a liar. And I detest liars.
Okay, well, you can be that way, but it's not really lying. It's just you don't know.
You're a liar. So welcome back to episode 30-something of The Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley. We are a part of the Little L Productions network that includes other such fine programming as Sports Ball with Mike and Alan, which you can find on Facebook.com/sportsballpodcast, as well as the Sherry Voluntary Show with our good friend Sherry Voluntary, which makes sense, right? I mean, it'd be weird if it was the Sherry Voluntary Show with Blake Osborne. But it is with Sherry Voluntary.
Yes.
All a part of the Little L Productions. You can find all of those programs, including ours, on your favorite podcasting platform of choice, which includes Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play.
Right.
You can join us on social media, which is Facebook.com/TGSAlanMosley, and Twitter, which is at Alan M. Mosley.
Yep.
And all of those other shows also have those things, but I feel like if this becomes a show where we do every show's thing, then we just roll credits then, because we're done. We're already over time. Look at it. We're done.
It's ridiculous.
So we're going to move on.
Okay, move on. Move on to what?
I mean, we'll move on in this episode, not just move on we're done with the Gold Standard.
That's correct.
I just saw you got excited there for a second. Like, oh, we're finally done? And you just flip the table. And... No, you're not getting off that easy,
no, I'm
though.
Not.
Okay.
I'm not. That's fine.
I just want to make sure. Okay. So this episode, I usually come up with the titles after we're done with the episodes, but I already know what the title of this one is.
Okay.
Which is Blake and Alan Don't Talk About Kavanaugh for about 30 minutes.
Not going to do it.
We're not talking about...
We're not wasting your time with that today.
Not
You've
doing
had enough of it already.
Not doing it.
That's right.
Not going to do it.
Yeah, we got more things to do.
Who was that? Is it Dana Carvey?
No, I thought that was the old George W.
Yeah, but it was Dana Carvey.
Carvey was funnier as George W. than George W. was as George W.
Well, I mean, because George W. was like
George W.
like a tyrant and a murderer, whereas Dana Carvey is pretending to be a tyrant and a murderer. And so there you go. We're already so far off the rails. We would just restart.
No, but
this is raw.
Yeah, that's right.
This is what the gold. This is the gold standard that everyone.
See this? This is the problem. Don't get one of these things. It will completely own you. Why don't you go away? Who is that? Stop. Stop it. Shut up.
I like how the more angry you are, the less likely it is.
The less likely the watch response.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like...
That's why you can't have these things that detect your heart rate and stuff, because they're using this information against you.
Do you know this thing tells me how fat I am every single day?
Well, I mean, your wife can do that.
Well, but she's a lot nicer than the watch. Most of the time.
Yeah. Well, so since we're not going to talk about Kavanaugh, there's a couple of different subjects I wanted to talk about today with relevant information, because I don't know anything. So I just have to parrot other people's information.
Sure.
This is so going to alienate so many of my friends. So I have a number of friends who are a part of the education system. I have a number of friends who are educators, and more of them are involved in the public education than private.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this is the last episode for them. They'll never watch the show after today. So this is an article that was on the Mises Wire from Zachary Garris that's called "Public School Teachers Are Not Underpaid." In fact, they're very much overpaid.
Really?
Now, every single teachers union shill just shut off the program right there. They're like, it doesn't even matter what his reasoning is. He's just wrong, and he should be hanged.
Yeah, because you can't say that. I mean, hey, we all want a lot of money for what we do.
Well, right, exactly. See, you're just stealing the thunder of this before we even get into it. But I like it though, because without even looking at the information, you're just like, well, who doesn't want more money?
Exactly.
But what matters is it worth the money to the people you're providing it to?
Guess it depends on what state you're in.
Well, Stand by. You're in a state of denial is where you're at. So Zachary Garris of Mises writes, so he's talking about here in the beginning of the article, there was a front page story in Time magazine, and I actually didn't bring this up because looking at it just kind of makes me sick to my stomach. But Time magazine had a front page article recently that was talking about teachers who are so underpaid that they're living week to week. It's hand to mouth. They can barely pay their bills. They're having to work 2 or 3 jobs. And to be fair, I knew teachers growing up that they also worked another job or they had a summer gig because they don't work all year.
Yeah.
So first of all, I barely count that as 2 jobs.
Yeah.
When you don't work for like 4 months and then you work
3 months off,
Yeah, so but going back to it, so in Time magazine they had this story of this woman who was making $55,000 per year teaching, but she also worked 2 other jobs in order to, quote, pay the bills. And also in the article they had complaints. So there was another teacher that was making $70,000 a year, and then of course it turns to your typical leftist tripe of, well, the reason why teachers make so little is because most teachers are women and the whole system is sexist, and so that's why they, if most teachers were men, then oh boy, they'd be making more money, because that's in their lack of imagination and economic sense.
Yeah.
The only way they can fathom why one person would make more or less than another is there must be some kind of discrimination involved.
It's got to be gender. Well,
no. It has to be malicious intent.
Yeah,
that's what.
wrong.
Yeah, that's what it has to be.
Yeah.
And so, so Zachary goes on to say, it's no surprise that the media promotes these sorts of stories because they want public schools, elementary, secondary schools, teachers to make more money because most of the mainstream media leans left, it's no surprise that teachers' unions are in bed with the Democratic Party.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they're working from their own self-interest, which I don't, in essence, necessarily think that everyone is working in their own self-interest. So of course they want those people to make more money. Now the problem is that if I were to ask you the question, well, what do you think teachers should make? That's a really hard question to answer. Because when you say teachers, do you mean all teachers?
Right.
Do you mean
public schools?
Do you mean new teachers or teachers that have been working for 10 or 20 years?
Right.
Do you mean teachers who students flunk out or teachers who have very high performance?
Yeah.
So there's not just teachers.
Yeah, it's not just in a box. It's not so simple. You're a teacher, you make this much.
Yeah, so there's all the individual teachers, and without a doubt, there are absolutely some teachers that are worth more than others.
Oh yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that the public school teachers that do well are still not overpaid.
Yeah.
So this comes down to a market calculation problem, which is the primary issue with socialism, and in public education in the United States is a socialist program.
It is.
Now see, this is where you start to lose some people. Because whether it's Republicans and the military or it's leftists, of course a lot of leftists are socialists anyway, but even your more moderate leftists who are thinking, well, I'm capitalist, but I'm pro public education.
Yeah.
So when what is essentially a non-calculable / infinitesimal tax base is taxed to fund programs against their will, in this case the program being, in the case of the right, the military, or in the case of the left, public education. That is the very definition of a socialist program.
That's right.
So when you were waving your flag this past Sunday at the football game saying, I love that we're in America, which is the strongest capitalist nation there ever was, those are socialist programs.
They are.
And they're awful.
Yeah.
Whether, and of course, I know someone's thinking, well, wait a minute, our military is really powerful. Well, when you spend more than like the next 10 countries combined, then it ought to be at least decent. So for the money that we spend on foreign interventions, no, it's abysmal. It's absolutely abysmal. And of course, we're not even getting into the taxation of theft, which of course it is. So every penny that was spent on it was wrongly used.
Not to mention that taxation is how you pay teachers.
And then of course, and granted, yes, so the tax base is going to fund these teachers. And also another important aspect of it is that, so the public counterparts to various private functions almost always are higher paid than their private counterparts.
Yeah.
So private school teachers on average are much lower paid. And we're not even talking about getting into benefits either, by the way.
No.
We're not even going there.
No.
So
that's a lot more.
A lot more.
Yeah.
So private school teachers are paid way less than public school teachers. And you say, well, wait a minute, Alan. I know you want private solutions and you think that private schools are so much better, so why are they paid so much less? How are you're not going to attract good teachers? Well, the first problem there is that basically kids who go to private school are basically paying double tuition. Because you will be taxed for your children's hypothetical entrance into public schools, whether you send them or not.
That's right.
You don't get to write the state of Tennessee and say, well, guys, listen, I actually homeschool or private school my kids, so can you just go ahead and refund that back? They will put you in jail.
Yeah.
That is what will happen.
In my situation, I've got 4 kids in private school.
Yeah, so you're a perfect example.
4 times, even though I'm paying, specific tuition for 4 times.
Yeah, so your money is helping to fund public education,
right?
Even though no one in your family is using public education.
Exactly. So therefore, I shouldn't have to pay that tax.
And of course, you can use me and Anna Kay as an example. Of course, part of our tax dollars go to pay public education, and we don't even have kids.
That's right.
So I'm helping to pay the tuition into public school, and you're paying because you've decided that private school is a better option for my children and their future.
Yep.
But that means you have to pay twice.
Yep.
And so the point of this is, first of all, it's wrong. I feel like anyone with any sense can agree that that's wrong.
Yeah.
But it really is driving the point home that that's why it's understandable that private school teachers are one reason why they're making less than their public school counterparts is because their public school counterparts are being funded by what is essentially an incalculable taxation.
Yeah.
Whereas the private schools are at the mercy of the market. They must demonstrate that they are providing a service adequately to their customer base.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of their customer base is thinking, well, I can have my kids educated, quote unquote, for free. Of course, it's not free, it's taxed. But to them that day, they can go to a public school for free, or I can pay more money for the private school, which means the private school, so the public schools don't have to compete. They don't have
no competition.
They don't have to compete with the private schools, not in any real sense.
That's right.
And then therefore, the private schools are obviously, no matter how good your private school is, a lot of people are going to choose the free option, if you want to call it that. Always hard quotations. Anytime you say the word free, it's hard quotations. You can get this show for free on.
Yeah.
You can get this show for free on your favorite podcasting platform of choice, as well as the video on YouTube. But don't let it be free.
Yeah.
Choose to support the gold standard.
That's right.
By going to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com, clicking on that donate button, type in like a 1 and then a lot of zeros, and then click send. Just do it. It's just that easy. It's just that easy. It's so good.
Isn't the state of Florida, wasn't the state of Florida one of the few states that had a voucher system for people who sent their kids to private school and they got some sort of tax relief for that?
I don't really want to go there, so we could do an entire.
We could do a whole show on this.
We could do an entire series on the voucher system. So there are libertarians who are against school vouchers because they would say that, well, that's just putting a Band-Aid on a problem. That's not really addressing the primary, because you're still gonna have public education. You're still gonna have taxation to fund vouchers and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
And they're right to say that, but however, I would also argue separately that a voucher system is better than what we currently have. So it's really just a matter of where you land strategically.
Yeah. Strategery.
That's where you're going to be on that.
Yeah.
So what it ultimately boils down to, from capitalism versus socialism, and understanding that programs like public education are socialist programs, is that only the free market can determine wages. So it's really so when I ask you, Blake, what should a teacher make? That's really a trick question, because
you can't really answer that.
You just can't really answer it. There's so many factors that go. So if we had a free market, if government did not forcibly tax citizens to pay for a public education system that they may or may not want. And if it was a totally wide open free market in education, even if you still have some semblance of public schools, they have to compete on more of a one-to-one with private schools. If private schools then were able to possibly then offer more and be more private, more options, more choices, more options available.
Right, and the best school would rise to the top, and the teachers that work there would make more.
And in those cases, so once again, this is teachers' unions have fucked us, is... thank you. So not only have teachers' unions gone a long way to making the public education system that we have, but their efforts have gone to stunt the potential growth of a private sector educational system. And so since we have less options and we have less choice, and we don't currently have something like a voucher system nationwide, where parents because then theoretically at least choose between different public schools or a private school. Just having that one little extra layer of the onion, it means that you can have teachers who, because they've been working 20 years, they got a raise every single year. Pretty much, if they don't shoot or rape a student, they will be teaching forever. They're just awful. How many of us, we've all been there, right? How many of us went to school and we had teachers and we were old enough to realize this guy's phoning it in. Yeah. This guy doesn't give a damn about me.
Doesn't care what happens.
He doesn't care.
Emotions every day, right from the blackboard.
He's just getting insurance and retirement. That's what he's here for. And in a private system, don't get me wrong, the private teacher is working in his own best interest. He wants, but to make a bigger paycheck, he's got to do a better job.
Work harder.
Mm-hmm. And it's just as simple as that.
What incentive is there? What incentive is there to work harder if you're guaranteed? I don't know.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's not a good. It's not.
We started off with something that makes me angry.
Yeah, so far it's easy peasy. Now it's turning into.
We got to start off with stuff that makes me feel good.
Makes you feel good. No, is there something that's making you feel good today? No, of course not.
Wait, hold on. What do you mean? Of course not. What is that?
I don't know. You scratch a lot of nerves, and that's good. We like that.
Okay. Yeah. So speaking of socialist programs like public education, like the military-industrial complex, this was actually written by Ron Paul. God, I love Ron Paul.
Good guy.
We miss the Ron Paul Revolution days. And before anyone ats me in the comments but Larry Sharp, oh my God. Larry Sharp is the next Gary Johnson. Get off of it. You're not going to win any elections with the LP anyway. I just love making enemies. That's what it really boils down to. I really love making enemies. But Ron Paul, there was a guy that was just an unabashed champion of freedom. I love the man. And he writes this article that was also published on his site, Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity, as well as Mises. Republicans shared the blame for socialism's comeback. Now, this was such a perfect segue, and I wanted to include this in today's stack, just because there's so many conservatives, there's so many Republicans that they still believe this just abject lie that we're the party of fiscal conservatism and limited government, and we believe in capitalism and the free market.
I've never seen that. They say that, but I've never actually ever really seen that happen. Funny how you say that.
It's funny that you would say that, Blake, because you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But when Republicans, control the House and the Senate and the presidency and soon the Supreme Court, yet the budgets just explode and explode and explode.
Up.
And so as Ron Paul writes, Republicans share the blame for socialism's comeback. He says in a recent poll, 70% of Americans, including about 50% of Republicans, support Medicare for all.
Yeah.
Which is the latest incarnation of single-payer health care. Mm-hmm. Republican support for a health plan labeled Medicare for all is not surprising, considering that Republican politicians support Medicare and that one of their attacks on Obamacare is that it would harm Medicare. So this is a socialist program.
It is.
So you can't walk around, obviously you can. Yeah. You shouldn't walk around saying you're a champion of limited government and fiscal responsibility when you support socialist programs.
Right.
So Dr. Paul continues, Many conservatives favor other government interventions into health care, including many features of Obamacare. The individual mandate was originated as a conservative proposal and was once championed by leading Republicans. And the same goes on in other areas. For example, the same conservative administrations and Congress that created Medicare Part D also dramatically expanded federal control of education with No Child Left Behind. Remember No Child Left Behind? Yeah, that happened under that happened under a Republican administration. Yep. And weren't we just talking about education? That's a socialist program.
Yes.
You are supporting socialism, which, kind of doesn't have a great track record.
No.
So, so this is a really interesting point. He says, the problem with this line is that by accepting the premise that government can and should solve all of life's problems, the conservatives and Republicans will inevitably get into a bidding war with progressives and Democrats. So really, the needle always moves left. It's really just a matter of how fast we go. The budgets always increase because everyone's always supporting their pet project. So there's never a decrease. It's only ever a matter of how fast will we increase the budget this year. And so finally, to kind of wrap up this point, while progressives blame social crisis on the free market, Republicans and conservatives are unwilling to admit the problems were caused by prior government interventions. Yep. The passage of Dodd-Frank was aided by claims that the housing bubble was created by deregulation, while Obamacare's passage benefited from widespread misconception that Americans had a, quote, free market healthcare system prior to 2010. If you think that the socialist Medicare system that we've had for decades now was free market health care, then I'm sorry to tell you this, you've been supporting a socialist program. That's going to be a new segment.
Socialist program.
You've been supporting a socialist program.
Yeah, you
I like
move your head like that when you do it.
I like that. And so along the same point, but this is such a great week for segues. So in that same point,
Look at this guy.
You'll remember,
like a pirate.
You'll remember that our lovely commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, was recently really pushing for tariffs, and those tariffs harmed our domestic farm producers. Yep. And so then they turned right around and said, well, we need to start supporting bailouts for the farmers who were hurt by your tariffs, because that right there is 4D chess, my friend. So pass taxes on people, and then when they are hurt by the taxes, give them a bailout that'll be paid for by taxes on other people. So you just pass the buck forever. That's what it really boils down to.
It's like a catch-22 of cheap money.
But this is particularly great. So Senator Chuck Grassley, who is the Republican from Iowa, he's a millionaire, of which how many of them aren't? So he's applying for the farm bailout funds that Trump supported. So President Trump's $12 billion bailout for U.S. farmers to mitigate the damaging effects of the trade war. Now senators are applying for the same bailout funds on their Iowa farms. And also, and it's not just Republicans, Senator John Tester, Democrat of Montana, is also applying for payments. God. So these multimillionaire congressmen who were at least accomplices to the tariffs being passed, which then hurt specific industries, big shocker there, are now applying for the bailouts for their 100... Yes.
It's almost as if they planned it that way. I mean, well, you need to go back to this picture. Go back to the picture with the guy with the fist. Okay, see, what we need to do is we need to Photoshop a big old chunk of money in his hand right there.
Yeah.
There it is. Now you go back.
We need to Photoshop something in his mouth. That's a whole other. That's a whole nother, as we like to say.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and wouldn't you know, big surprise here as well. Some 7,800 checks of this bailout money just so happens to be going to swing states in the Midwest that voted for Trump.
Oh, really?
Color me surprised. Mm-hmm. And so guess what? If you believe in bailouts for specific industries, you are supporting a socialist program. But not to be outdone.
Wow.
Our favorite representative, Thomas Massey of Kentucky.
Here
Thomas Massey, one of the few guys who really get it, tweeting out just earlier today, "Are you awake, or are you saying things like President blank ran up the deficit and the party blank is to fault for our debt?" He says, number one, Congress has the power of the purse. Yep. Number two, Democrats and Republicans work together to blow the budget.
That's right.
Exhibit A, the most recent omnibus bill, where the most recent omnibus bill, which of course I think our budget deficit for this year is up to something like $800 billion. I mean, on the heels of bills exactly like this omnibus spilling bill. And he says, won't you look at that? 176 yays of Republicans and 185 yays of Democrats, with only about 61 dissenting from both parties combined. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Republicans and Democrats have both had their hand in the honey pot because they love them some socialist programs.
That's right. You ain't gonna win, man. You ain't gonna win. If you're on one side or the other, you're a socialist. There's just no way around it.
It's a big club, and you ain't.
That's right, and you don't get to put your hand in the pot.
So what are we at, Blake?
We're at about 25 minutes.
So we've got one more fun little thing, and we're gonna cut it early today. This is, you know what?
What?
I actually came into the studio today thinking, I don't know if this is really going to gel, because I kind of just sort of throw some stuff together, and I was like, well, we've got to make it, like, we have to make it, form it into a narrative. It can't just be all over the place. This has worked out great.
Yeah, it's working good.
You know what? I'm a fantastic host.
Look at him.
And
I'm going to sell you a bottle of Ego Glow. We need to get some of that in here. Spray it on yourself, you know.
So we're gonna finish today. Go ahead and pull up this.
Pull this up. I remember this one. Hold on, let me get us out of the way here.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
So we pulled up a graphic here today, which, by the way, before we read anything, it's a quote by the music artist Vince Gill.
Right.
First of all, Vince doesn't look like that anymore.
No,
this was like 30 years ago, and second of all, I can't confirm that he actually said this quote. He may very well have. If he did, I'm going to make fun of him here in a minute. But he may not have, because that's what's awesome about the internet, is that I could have put at the bottom -- Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, and nobody
Abraham
would
Lincoln
know.
could. Yeah, no one would know.
Yeah.
So
okay, so here you go.
So this is coming from Vince Gill, and of course the graphic purports one of the most respected, best-selling music artists of his generation. Well, I mean, he has been a successful artist.
Well, yeah.
I shy away from anything that is so, like, clearly biased like that.
Yeah.
Like, it couldn't just say Vince Gill, musician.
Yeah, right.
But anyway.
Okay, here we go.
Vince Gill says, maybe, the devaluation of music and what it's now deemed to be worth is laughable to me. My single cost 99 cents. That's what a single cost in 1960. On my phone, I can get an app for 99 cents that makes fart noises, the same price as the thing I create and speak to the world with. Some would say the fart app is more important. It's an awkward time. Creative brains are being sorely mistreated. Now, I want to read this one more time really quickly, but putting some fun emphasis.
Sure.
So this is from Vince Gill, economic illiterate.
Right.
The change of music and what it's now deemed to be worth is laughable to me because I'm an idiot. My single costs 99 cents for lots of valid reasons. That's what a single cost in 1960. I'm not sure about that.
I don't know either. In 1960, a record cost 99 cents.
So I'm not so sure about that, but we'll let that go.
All right.
On my phone, I can get an app for 99 cents that makes fart noises. Sounds to me like the market doth provide.
Yeah, there's lots of fart apps out there.
Yeah. The same price as the thing I create and speak to the world with. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's you made it, and you chose to be the artist. So that's still on you. That's not on me.
Yeah.
Some would say the fart app is more important. Maybe. I mean, if they don't like your music, but they like a fart app, then they would think it was more important.
Yeah.
But again, that's the market making decisions for itself, not you making those decisions.
I can see that.
It's an awkward time. You said it, friend.
Yeah.
Creative brains are being sorely mistreated.
Mistreated by who?
Mistreated by who? That's a good question. Creative brains. Well, again, so if you like your music and you value yourself with that level of self-worth, then you certainly would think something is amiss. But I have a sneaking suspicion that if you don't have the net worth of like Jeff Bezos, then it might be because not everyone feels the same way about your particular art.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known all sorts of artists who I thought were very talented people, and they're nowhere near Vince Gill in terms of success.
With a guy like Vince Gill, with his, with his influence and his, his purse, he should be able to take complete control of his art and screw the middleman. It's just... and that's the problem with the music industry in general, is that we still are trying to have this middleman do everything for us. Why?
So a friend of mine posted this on Facebook just the other day. A friend of mine posted this
right here.
And my response to this is that, well, good news, Vince. Because you can do exactly what Blake just insinuated. What you can do is you can take it upon yourself to take that entrepreneurial stride, and you could attempt to cut out the middleman.
That's right.
Go ahead. Don't sign your next contract. Get out of your current label. Don't work with another platform or distributor as long as you live, unless you can negotiate.
You don't need them anymore.
Don't let Columbia Records negotiate a contract for you. Yeah. You do it all on your own.
That's right. Just like sports and a free agent, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? Actually, that's a whole totally different conversation. But you're starting to see more athletes not sign agents.
That's right.
So that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But he is more than welcome to go start his own Spotify, start his own Napster. For some reason, Napster came to mind.
That doesn't exist. It's funny.
Our younger audience is like, that sounds neat. What's that?
A Napster?
Yeah, what's a Napster?
I mean, the thing is, like, when you reach a certain point in the music industry and you have the ability to go directly to your audience, the middleman is just going to rob you. He's just going to slow you down. It's going to rob you. It's going to prevent you from making
Wait, hold on. So this is why we're talking about this, because I'm picking on you a little bit.
Okay.
He's not robbing you. He's providing something that
they're robbing the artist.
Yeah, they're not. He's not robbing the artist.
Okay.
Not at all.
The middleman's not robbing the artist.
Absolutely not, because people in this world provide services for a return. If that middleman is negotiating your contracts, if that middleman is printing the CDs and putting them on the shelves of Walmart, if that middleman is making sure that you come at the top of the search engine on Spotify, he's performing a service. Now, if you think that you can do it just as well or better, or if the difference between what you're making per single here versus what you could make per single doing it yourself, even if you don't sell as many, or if you just value having complete control of your own business,
which you should,
then so be it. I applaud that 100%, because all of the great innovations have come from people doing exactly those things.
But don't complain when the middleman slows you down or takes more from you than you think needs to be taken.
But also understand that with this triumphant strive for individualism comes the responsibility that no one is going to be there to fix your little PR mess. No one's going to be there to decide whether or not you ran out of physical copies. No one is going to be there to negotiate your contracts with various. They're not going to determine what iTunes does and how. That's on you.
That's right.
I applaud someone like Vince. Vince has had a successful career. He ought to have the resources that if he wanted to. I think the Eagles do that. So I think the Eagles
Doesn't Tim McGraw do that now?
So there are some that do that.
There's a lot of guys that are out there doing it.
But but really coming back to it, so this is more of a grandiose, like, social state. I know that he's not. He's not.
And he might not have even said that anyway.
So look, I know that Vince Gill's not an economist. I don't hold it against people for not knowing a lot about economics. This is really more of a social statement than it is an economic statement. But even as a social statement, the free market is both an economic market, but it's also the market of ideas. And if the market has decided that 1 million people want the Fart app and they're willing to pay 99 cents, that's between the makers of that app and their customers. If if your single is worth 99 cents, and let's say you take complete control and you want to sell your single for $5, but all of a sudden people were like, well, for 99 cents, I'll pick up his new single, but for $5, I'm not as interested. I could get 5 singles from, I don't even know what Little Big Town is. That's a group, right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't listen to crap, so I don't know what any of this music is. But I love alienating people. That's what's so great.
That's why I stay quiet.
I know. You just think, oh, that cost us.
Yeah.
But I applaud those efforts, but I hate grandiose social statements.
Yeah.
Because you're implying that the world is awful, and if it just was the way that I wanted, it would be better. Well, maybe. I mean, there's certainly things about the world I would prefer be different.
Right.
But that's going to be up to people to decide, and people are a part of a free market whether they believe in it or not.
Yeah.
And the market of ideas is just as important as an economic market.
That's right.
And in this case, hate to tell you, Vince, people want to pay 99 cents for your song. They don't want to pay more.
Yeah.
That's that.
That's that.
So
there you go.
Just roll credits.
Yeah, but we don't have credits.
But what we do have is me doing my same old pitch. So, guys, if you enjoyed the episode,
That's right.
episode 30,
something,
just like I'll cover my mouth, episode 35, and then you just put it in.
Yeah,
you know,
I'll figure it out later.
So, thank you so much to my producer Blake,
Yes,
who
sir.
probably about once every 10 episodes I say this is Blake.
Yeah.
And so if you come in around episode like 37, you'd be like, who's that guy?
Yeah, who's that blonde guy?
Well, go back and watch. First of
Why
all,
has he got headphones on?
First of all, God help you go back watch other episodes of the show, because we have some great ones with some fantastic guests.
We do.
But if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the show, which is goldstandardpodcast.com, and you click on that donate button. You can also go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Remember that TGS Alan Mosley, because that'll also get you on Facebook, facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. You can also, YouTube is, because we now have our YouTube URL.
Oh, yeah.
We're almost like a real show.
Almost there.
So it's now youtube.com/TGS Alan Mosley.
Sweet.
I know.
Dude.
I know.
That's like...
That only took like a year.
This close to cool, man.
That only took like a year. You can, on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. I actually remember, I'm just gonna say this real quick, because I'm just filling up time now. Someone had actually messaged us on Facebook like around episode 11 and said, your show's kind of cool, but I usually just listen to stuff in the car. Do you have it like in audio format anywhere? And I said, oh, dude, we're working on it. We're working on it. You'll know, because we're going to make an announcement. So then like a year goes by, but we actually, so we're not liars, because we did do it. It just took a really long time.
That's about how long it takes me to do laundry.
So if you just search The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, whatever, you're going to find it right there in audio format.
That's right.
Is that everything?
That's everything. I think we're good, bro.
So don't support socialist programs.
No.
Do support The Gold Standard.
Yes.
That's Blake, and we'll see you next week.